Hey there, how you doing? Welcome to the channel today. So today I want to take a look at what's going on with the stock market. I've not done this for quite a while, but one of the things that's going on right now is that we have, some resistance in the stock market that's finally come into play. We basically looking at the QQQs here. This is the NASDAQ 100, whatever you call it, and ETF. And basically, you can see we've been just running up this whole time. So everything's been just kind of straight up. But what we have over here is we're finally starting to get to that point where we're getting some kind of a correction here. So if you look over here, you can see that let me see, I will do this. Okay. You can see that we're getting into this area up here. And what's happened is we're still, see, the thing that's going on here, if you look at the 50-week moving average, so the red, and then the 10-week, and so that's 50 is the 200-day moving average, equivalent to basically 200. And you can see they're still above it. And we came down and we touched it and then pop back up on the QQQs. But now we're coming back down. So now we have kind of this. And the other thing is this is a weekly chart. So this is a longer term chart. So we see we peaked out in July. So looking right here, you see we peaked out in July. And so it's kind of like we very well could be going into a topping process here, and it's been going on all the way into now, which is September, and we can see that we've had some really heavy selling weeks here, and then it came back up off the 200 day moving average, and then we've come back down really again. Now there's a couple for sure kind of like setups that we have here, right? Obviously we can't predict how this is exactly going to play out, but we can kind of try to speculate on different things that could happen here. So one thing that could happen is, we come back down, we've hit the moving average, we come back up, and then we come back down and we hit it again, and we bounce up and we continue up. This would be kind of the classic W. So now, if you were looking at the W and you're saying to yourself, well, is that going to happen? How would you kind of know that that happened? First of all, really this low here, right? This low, right around 420. You got to hold about 420. And it's, better if you bounce off the 200-day moving average. You might break a little, but even more critically, you really got to kind of hold above this low. And if you do break through that low, you really got to crack back up. So this would kind of be the bullish scenario that you're talking about. You come down, boom, correct, come up, put in a W. And then the key to kind of confirm that, hey, have you broken out of this is over here at about 480. This is the point where you kind of like, okay, we've now pulled out and we've gotten back up. So that's kind of the setup that I see there for the QQQs. Now, the Qs are always often a little more volatile here. And so now we could go ahead and look for, go like this, and we're going to go look at the SPY. Now, the SPY, similar type of thing going on, but it didn't come all the way down to the 200-day moving average. So it's a little different. It's holding up a little better. And this is because of the tech component, the AI tech component that's inside of that. Now, I want to look at the TLT. So this is the ETF that's iShares 20 plus Treasury. We can see from this thing that if we look at it, and I'm going to try to go to this, and I have this annotation on, so it makes it hard. But I'm trying to go back out to a much longer term chart. And therefore, let me just do this. Let me take my annotation and turn this off. Okay, good. And what we see here, if we look, is that the TLT, the bond, this is basically following kind of the price of the bond. So you can see that the bonds have really, spiked up back in 2020. And so basically, as we went into the situation with the pandemic, all that garbage, it basically peaked out. Money was going into bonds. So normally there's this kind of like, can be kind of inverse moves where the bonds go up and stock market goes down, et cetera. So what we're seeing here is we kind of look back to just the weekly. Um, and I really want to move out just like a little bit more. I don't want to go off the rails, but just like a little more. Yeah, you can see it better here. And so the point is, since pandemic 2020, bonds have been coming down, and that's goes along with the stock market going up, and the bonds have been going down. Somebody coming out of bonds, uh, and the price of bonds going down, aka rates going up. Okay. So, but now the point is, this is a perfect kind of a bottoming pattern on a long-term weekly chart. You're talking about a bottom here that's gone on for quite a long time. And then looking at it, we can see that, we've had this basically this one here, we've had this big downtrend going, right? And we can see that that's been going on for quite a while. But you can see that you put in like kind of had a low here, getting used to this thing, and then we put a low here. But now what's happening is, see how it's transitioning. The red one here, which is the 50 week or 200-day moving average, we started to get up to it. It's stopping its decline. It's basically flattening out. And then we can see this is typically how these bottoms happen. You get a point where it starts to press up against it, the rate of decline diminishes, and you kind of have right here, you have a higher low over here, and you kind of have this bottom, and then you can see that it's pushing up, and then see here, like it's kind of broken out above this range over here at 97.5. So this is kind of how we tell you that the tide is turning for the bonds. And so that's what we see there that's going on. The other thing to look at, so the other thing, let's look at like NVIDIA, because we're going to look at this NVIDIA here, and the reasoning behind this. You basically had this really huge move in terms of NVIDIA being this, making a lot of money selling AI chips and stuff like that. We've really had this breakout in the last year or so, where these large language models, Chat GPT, et cetera, it's really just finally broken out and come into their own. And so you can see here that basically it's turned very volatile. It's gone, straight up for the last 2 years. And then it's like, since, about in June, it's basically gone sideways. So you can see, the question is this thing going to top out? And it's probably too early to say. I mean, it very well could be. If I go back to 2023, just try to pick a price, and it's at $15 at the current trading. I don't know if it's split. I mean, we can look that up, but 15, $20 it was. So it's gone from 20 to, call it 120. So it's a significant move, right? That it's had. And the bullish case here would be, this continuing to kind of W and consolidate into this moving average, and then starting to go up again. That would be a bullish case. The negative case would be, it starts breaking down below this low, which is at about 90. That's one of the areas to look. I mean, you're in a downdraft right now, right? You're drafting down, so you got to really see if it holds the 90 and holds this the red line 200 moving day. If it starts cracking through that, then your next support will certainly only be at right over here, which is at U75. So this is kind of what's going on there. In terms of the AI, so let's talk about that for a minute. The whole thing is, we've had this AI kind of boom that has come out, and basically, uh, what happens is, technology develops, right? And it keeps moving up. And at some point we just hit a wall, not a wall, we've just broken through a point where, like, these large language models have developed enough, the compute has gotten cheap enough such that they have some use. And you have your Chat GPT-4, et cetera, and the AI breaking out in this thing. And so now companies have been trying to train their models and stuff. And so on the hardware side for NVIDIA, et cetera, they've sold a lot of money in chips to help do this AI training. NVIDIA, the GPU guys, kind of shares a lot of similar behavior with AI in terms of, training models, and then how you have to do it. You need a lot of compute for that, and you need a lot of it's more GPU type of compute, lots and lots of just compute elements to calculate, to do all your training and stuff like that, and to train your models. So the question now is really, is there an AI bubble? And I think the question right now is that it's probably currently like an AI bubble. I mean, it's definitely, you have this situation where companies have spent a lot of money building out data centers that they can use to create AI like products, to train AI networks, large language models, et cetera. And they probably spent a lot of money very fast. And that's where you have a situation where, you know, NVIDIA for sure has benefited extremely well about this. But on the other hand, the question is, at some point it has to be like, well, okay, are people going to make money off this? And that becomes the next part. So if you go back to like the tech bubble, uh, in the early 2000s, when we had like there was all this stuff about, the digits rolling over from to year 2000, and there was a lot of investment in tech and a lot of things going on at that time. But and then also in the early internet, um what happened is you have a lot of companies that just were like, they put .com in their name and they went basically nowhere and failed. But we do have to remember that behind that there was a lot of innovation that stuck, and aka, the example pets.com, failed, and a whole bunch of other .com companies failed, and even some large companies basically failed. But at the end of the day, what did you get out of that? You got things like Amazon, you got these other big companies, and a totally different way of uh doing retail, and that stuck, and that was a real thing, and it's a very huge successful business for Amazon, et cetera. So I would imagine the same thing. Okay. The same thing going on for AI. At the end of the day, this AI is going to be useful for stuff, a lot of stuff. And then the crux of that is, okay, it's going to be useful. The issue is finding out, what is it going to be useful for? And then the other issue is like, well, how to make money on it. So I think we're in a phase where there's been this probably an AI bubble, but some aspect of it will end up sticking around and be permanent and will be a permanent business model. But I don't think that we've probably found that model yet. I mean, when you look at it, it's like AI is just another way of programming in a way, right? Like when you do like machine learning, it's like, okay, what is machine learning? Yada, yada, yada. You basically, it's like another way of programming. You sit there instead of saying like, okay, I want to identify something, right? So I want to be able to, in my car, identify that whether this is there a bike in front of me, et cetera, something like that, right? So you got to, take the data that's coming into your sensors and you figure out like, hey, is this a bike or is this not a bike? AKA, because, and then the decision is you don't want to hit the bicyclist, right? So that's kind of the crux of the issue. So, at some point when you figure that all out, the question's going to be, um, darn, I don't have a thing here. Um, how are you going to make money with that model, et cetera? And so that's going to be the question here in terms of things like Chat GPT. I mean, who's going to be able to make a business model out of it? And I think a lot of it, AI will be used in the background, a lot in the background, in a lot of places that, quite frankly, you're just not going to hear about. And it's just going to be going on in the background. And right now, there's a lot of, I think, the kind of AI stuff where it's like, kind of maybe exaggerated in terms of like what AI is going to take over and how many jobs it's going to take over. That's probably like a little bit exaggerated at this point. And so that will all have to kind of uh fade out and get kind of resolved at this point. So I think, AI is here to stay. I come in from an engineering background, and at the end of the day, we use all these tools to design chips and stuff, and engineers use all these tools for all kinds of stuff, and we're always looking for something else, uh, to help us design better chips, design better things, or whatever. And so that kind of stuff will stay with us. The thing that always happens with AI is that you have to. The issue is kind of understanding the results you're getting, and are you getting the results that you want? This becomes one of those critical problems that you have with AI. So let me show you an example. So I'm showing over here this is a model that I'm programming that I'm just trying to do. So what I'm doing is I'm experimenting with just good old TensorFlow. And this isn't really AI. This is really just machine learning type stuff. But at the end of the day, there's a decision. So what basically you get this CIFAR data, CIFAR data, and you basically can download the data and you can train a model to identify things in there. And so, for example, what's happening over here is I basically flash up the pictures. I've trained the model and I'm testing it. I'm saying like, okay, I'm predicting that this picture is a deer and actually is it a deer, et cetera. You can see that it's got some wrong here. My network predicted that it was a cat. It's actually a dog, et cetera. So it's actually not doing very well right now. And there's a couple things going on. The first is like the network that I've created in terms of what are the different layers, whether it's convolutional or dense network layer and all that stuff. And then the other question is, how are you training it and the data and the whole thing? So here what you can see is going through these epochs of training. And you can see basically this number, the accuracy over here. And so the accuracy number is like 0.5. So it's only 50% accurate. And then it kind of ticks up to about 64%. So in this particular one, I'm not able to really get the accuracy there, and it's not really clear what's wrong. At the end of the day, I could take and just program in C or Python, something to just take in the pixels and identify what a cat is or what a deer is. But in this model, we take training data and use that to program what the weights are going to be. So this actually can be much more effective way, but the only issue is that it's a lot more tricky. It's a little more difficult to figure out if you're getting the results that you want and how to take, because for this is kind of a failure. This isn't working, but the question is, how do I modify it? And I've been playing with it, but it's like, how do you modify it to get the results that are useful and helpful for you? So that's sort of where AI is. I mean, we're in the very early days, and I think uh will it's just going to be in the background. It's going to be like all the other technology programming stuff. It's going to be in the background, and maybe the chat bots, people have their own personal like assistants and stuff. Maybe that'll all come to fruition, but we'll see. All right, so I think that's it for this one. Bye.